that is pratyaksh. And since pratyaksh is the only praman, they have to give their arguments against the remaining, and they reject anuman, they reject shabd. And the central argument we have seen, so we can start with the writing parts, and then we'll come to the questions. Okay? नहीं कथाएं नहीं, शब्द प्रमाण is a knowledge through verbal testimony. In general, it is like scriptures, okay, Vedic scriptures. But in the case of Charwaka, Ved is not authoritative. They see it as the work of a select few, that is privileged section, who have created these truth for their own personal gain. So they are beholding people. People in general, ordinary folks are too naive, they are credulous, so their mind has been corrupted. So it's like a conspiracy. So they are taken for a ride, and they are being exploited for the gain of select few. But in some other cases, like we'll come to Jainism, we'll see Buddhism, they reject Ved. They are heterodox traditions. But for them, the teachings of their own seers, in the case of Jaina Tirthankaras, okay, so the writings of Tirthankaras known as Angas, they are reliable. So that is reliable to them. Similarly, in the case of Buddhism, the words of Buddha is reliable. But then in many other cases, one form of a praman is reduced to other. Everyone who may reject Shabd is not rejecting Shabd, scriptures per se. They say Shabd is actually a form of Anuman actually. तो किसी के लिए शब्द क्या हो सकता है? अनुमान ही है. अनुमान इज लाइक यू लिसन टू सम वर्ड एंड यू इन्फर द मीनिंग. तो हर वो ट्रेडिशन जो शब्द को नहीं एक्सेप्ट करता इज नॉट रिजेक्टिंग अथॉरिटी ऑफ स्क्रिप्चर्स. दे आर ट्राइंग टू सजेस्ट दैट सो कॉल्ड शब्द इज अनुमान इन डिसगाइज. समझ रहे हैं? ये सिक्स जो प्रमाण है इसमें अर्थापत्ति और इन्फरेंस अनुमान दोनों सेम सिमिलर साउंड करते हैं. हाँ, तो फिर से जैसे मैंने कहा ना कि एक प्रमाण जो ट्रेडिशन में है, दूसरा उसको या तो इट विल बी रिड्यूस्ड टू सम अदर प्रमाण और इट विल रिमेन एन इंडिपेंडेंट प्रमाण. तो इन द केस ऑफ न्याय वैशेषिक वी विल हैव 4 प्रमाण. Now let's say that you ask Nyaya, sir, why not Arthapatti? So they would say Arthapatti is not a separate praman. Arthapatti is a form of Anuman. Okay, sir, why not Anuplabdhi? They say Anuplabdhi is not needed. What is the knowledge through Anuplabdhi? Knowledge of absence, abhava. Just say Russell would say negative fact. So Nyaya Vaisheshik would say we don't need Anuplabdhi. We can know absence through the same senses through which you know their presence. So in the case of Nyaya Vaisheshik, Pratyaksh is the praman to see existence and to know also non-existence. ठीक है? तो न्याय वैशेषिक ने अर्थापत्ति को, अनुपलब्धि को रिजेक्ट किया इस तरह से कि ये अपने आप में प्रमाण नहीं है. अर्थापत्ति इज ए फॉर्म ऑफ अनुमान एंड अनुपलब्धि इज नॉट नीडेड जब प्रत्यक्ष है ही. तो समझे? तो बहुत सारे केसेस में वन प्रमाण कैन बी रिड्यूस्ड टू अनदर. सो डोंट गो फॉर द मल्टीप्लाइंग, डोंट अननेसेसरली कीप ऑन एडिंग नंबर्स. ठीक है? लेकिन चारवाक इज नॉट रिड्यूसिंग, टू सम एक्सटेंट दे मे रिड्यूस. तो जिसको अगर आप अनुमान बोल रहे हैं, एज आई सेड दैट सो शिक्षित चारवाक वुड से वी हैव नो प्रॉब्लम इफ यू से ए बिल्डिंग हैज गॉट अ फायर, बिकॉज़ वी कैन ऑलवेज क्रॉस एग्जामिन. वी हैव अ प्रॉब्लम व्हेन यू टॉक अबाउट द रियलिटी ऑफ आकाश, you talk about आत्मा, you talk about God, then we have problem because never ever there can be any cross examination. ठीक है? तो उनके लिए भी अब अनुमान एक तरह से to some extent प्रत्यक्ष ही है, जो सुन के ही आप समझ रहे हैं. तो सिमिलरली शब्द, that you are speaking, other is responding. तो कोई बोलेगा तो फिर तो ये शब्द प्रमाण है, तो चारवाक क्या बोलेंगे? To that extent it is प्रत्यक्ष. आपने सुना इंद्रिय से, you are able to listen and understand. ठीक है? नहीं, वही बात है शुभम कि किसी के लिए अनुमान ही है जो शब्द है. लेकिन जैसे न्याय में भी शब्द अलग से प्रमाण है, मीमांसा में भी अलग से है. बट इन मेनी केसेस इंक्लूडिंग सांख्य, these two will suffice. यानी उनके लिए शब्द प्रमाण भी एक तरह से क्या है? अनुमान है. जितने वर्ड्स हैं एंड द कॉरेस्पॉन्डिंग मीनिंग ऑफ द वर्ड इज इनफर्ड. ठीक है? समझ रहे हैं बात? ओके, तो आइए लिखा जाए आज चारवाक. पहले read the heading theory of knowledge epistemology. ठीक है? हाँ, नहीं, चारवाक ज्ञान मीमांसा, थ्योरी ऑफ नॉलेज एपिस्टेमोलॉजी. तो टेक्निकल शब्द क्या होगा? ज्ञान मीमांसा. मेटाफिजिक्स इज तत्व मीमांसा. ओके, लिखें चारवाक एक्सेप्ट प्रत्यक्ष as the only praman. They accept pratyaksh perception as the only praman. They refute anuman. They refute anuman. They argue that व्याप्ति ज्ञान cannot be acquired sufficiently and conclusively. Vyapti is the universal and necessary relation of, it is the universal and necessary relation of invariable concomitance. It is the universal and necessary relation of invariable concomitance. अब एक सेट सब हेडिंग बनाएं. Refutation of अनुमान. The Charwaka argue that अनुमान प्रमाण is based on व्याप्ति ज्ञान. However, व्याप्ति ज्ञान cannot be acquired through induction or through deduction. It cannot be acquired through induction or and through deduction. Anuman is based on a prior knowledge. For instance, the universal and necessary relation of invariable concomitance between smoke and fire. It is based on a prior knowledge. The universal and necessary relation of invariable concomitance between smoke and fire. Colon देके भी लिख सकते हैं. You write as a first premise. Wherever there is smoke, there is a fire. Yeah, all the cases of smoke are the cases of fire. The first premise is wherever there is smoke, there is a fire. Second premise, smoke is coming out of that red building. Smoke is coming out of that red building. Now you draw a line of separation. उसके नीचे line के नीचे लिखें therefore the red building has caught fire. The building is on fire. The red building has caught fire. The Charwaka claim that the Vyapti relation between smoke and fire cannot be explained conclusively. It is fallacious to move from some observed cases. It is fallacious to move from some observed cases to unobserved cases. Our knowledge is confined to the present. Our knowledge is confined to the present. We cannot know sufficiently about the distant past and the future. Hence, Vyapti is not credible. It cannot be known through Pratyaksh. Since Pratyaksh is the knowledge of particular instance, it can give us the knowledge of present cases alone. Vyapti relation is universal and necessary. It is not confined to a few cases. It is not confined to a few cases, but to all the cases, hyphen past, present, and future. Thus, Pratyaksh cannot be the source of Vyapti Gyan. Pratyaksh cannot be the source of Vyapti Gyan. Vyapti cannot be proved through or known through Anuman. Vyapti cannot be proved or known through Anuman, comma, since Anuman is based on Vyapti. Since Anuman is based on Vyapti. Through induction, comma, at best, we can acquire a highly probable knowledge, but not necessary and certain knowledge. Deduction presupposes the relation rather than explain it. Deduction presupposes the relation rather than explain it. Thus, it is circular. Rather than explain it. Thus, it is circular. Yeah, it commits the fallacy of begging the question. Petitio principi. आगे लिखें. Vyapti cannot be established through scriptures. Vyapti cannot be established through scriptures, since scriptures are not praman, are not reliable, or they reject Shabd Praman. So scriptures are not Praman. Charvak reject Shabd Praman. Charvak argue that scriptures are not the reliable sources of knowledge. They are the works of cunning people. They have constructed a way of life by writing these texts so that they can meet their vested self-interest. The texts talk about life before birth and after death. Similarly, the texts make many other claims which can never be cross-examined through sense experience. Thus, they refute Shabd Praman. By rejecting Vyapti relation, they end up challenging causal relation on the lines of David Hume. Like Hume, the Charvak claim that necessity cannot be explained on the basis of pratyaksha. We only perceive that one event is followed by the other. We only perceive that one event is followed by the other. It may create a psychological belief, but cannot explain logical and universal necessity between the two. Thus, causal relation, as a form of a Vyapti relation, is not certain. Many other traditions, like Shunyavad and Advait Vedant, reject the relevance of all other Praman, all the Praman. They reject the relevance of all the Praman, including Anuman. They reject all the Praman, including Anuman, at the transcendental level. At the transcendental level. However, they do accept the significance of Anuman at the empirical level. They do accept the significance of Anuman at the empirical level. Now is subheading critical analysis. The critics observe that the very refutation of Anuman is self-contradictory. The very refutation of Anuman is self-contradictory. To reject Anuman, one relies on Anuman. To reject Anuman, one relies on Anuman. To reject Anuman, one relies on Anuman. That is, Anuman refers to the power to think reason, and analyze. Anuman refers to the power, ya Anuman refers to the act of thinking, reasoning, analysis. Yani, it refers to the power to think, to reason, to analyze. To claim that, quote unquote, all instances of Anuman are invalid, unquote, is to employ Anuman. समझ में आएगा? Hence, to infer is to rely on Anuman. One can understand the views of others only on the basis of Anuman. Moreover, percepts without concepts would remain blind and meaningless. The very refutation of a Vyakti, implies the possibility of Vyakti and Anuman. इसको point number 1 कर दीजिए, second point लिखिए. Perception is not always reliable. Perception is not always reliable. It can often be deceptive. Earth is perceived as flat, comma, sun is perceived as moving. But through inference, Anuman, we understand that Earth is not flat and the sun is not moving. Next point लिखें. The refined Charwaka observe that only those instances of Anuman are refuted. Only those instances of Anuman are refuted which cannot be empirically verified. If Anuman is employed to establish the reality of Akash, कैसे लिखेंगे आकाश? To establish the reality of Akash, Atma as a spiritual substance, and the existence of God. क्या थी सेंटेंस पूरा पढ़ लिया लास्ट वाला? If Anuman is employed to establish the reality of Akash, Atma as spiritual substance, and the existence of God, comma, only then Anuman is problematic. But as far as Anuman is employed to acquire knowledge of the empirical world, it can remain a reliable Praman. Okay, आप एक हेडिंग बनाइए, रेफ्यूटेशन ऑफ शब्द प्रमाण. इसमें कुछ नया नहीं है जो हमने लिखा है. We can just reiterate it all over again and we can write few more points. Refutation of शब्द प्रमाण लिखें. The Charwaka refute the authority of the scriptures. They claim that the teachings of the scriptures are misleading and meaningless. They suspect that the narratives are constructed to deceive the naive and credulous people. The narratives are constructed to deceive the naive and credulous people. They see them as the works of propaganda. They question the justification of religious rites and rituals. They wonder how people in the heaven can be served by serving people on the ground. It seems illogical to say that offering food to people on the ground floor can satisfy or satiate, can satisfy the hunger, or can satiate the hunger of the people on the top floor. How? By sacrificing an animal, the lives of the ancestors could get better in the heaven? Question mark. Again, the refined Charwaka are not against testimony as far as they give us the knowledge of the empirical world. Moreover, testimony, testimony, testimony consists of words, and knowledge through words can be a form of perception or pratyaksha. They reject testimony only when they try to establish the reality of transcendental entities. They prove the reality of transcendental entities. Some traditions accept God as the author of the scriptures, but the existence of God is not established conclusively. They rely on Anuman or Shabd Praman to prove the existence of God. Hence, there is complete circularity. अब एक लाइन और लिख लीजिए. Many other traditions reject Shabd as an independent Praman and reduce it to Anuman. Okay, so now you know Charwaka's epistemology. ठीक है? You know how from their epistemological positions they establish their metaphysics. So if Pratyaksha is the only Praman, all that should be there must be perceivable. और कौन सी चीजें हैं? Air, water, fire, earth. आकाश, ether is also not perceived, it is inferred, तो नहीं है. Atma as a substance is not real. God is of course not there. You also understand that by rejecting Atma, Vad, they propound Dehatma. They itself is Atma. But you should understand that they are not rejecting consciousness. Consciousness is there, but the challenge is how to explain consciousness. And they think consciousness is a byproduct, phenomenon. It is not present in either of the four. But when they are combined in a particular proportion, it comes out as a byproduct. Like red color may come when you eat bitter leaf, areca nut, lime together. Intoxicating qualities may come as certain ingredients are combined together. Maybe there's something like fermentation. So similarly, they believe air, water, fire, earth, themselves being unconscious can also give rise to consciousness. Later also, we have many other behaviorists. They also try to explain consciousness with reference to body itself. They believe so-called mental phenomena can be reduced to physical behavior and it is not over and above your body. Or some may say that our system has certain character. For example, eyes have the work to do, see, listen, speak, taste, and so forth. Heart may pump blood. वैसे ही mind का भी काम है, brain का भी काम है, and it has to give us consciousness. Do not see it as over and above your physical self. It is part of your body only. So this would be one of the way to understand Dehatmavad. but the way message would be sent across is what they reject Atma. So how Shankar would respond, time and again I have told you, something like on the line of Kant. But when Kant is responding to Hume, his objection is very pertinent because Hume says the self is a bundle and there is nothing like over and above anything than the instances of a perception. And just because they are in close proximity, we impose identity through laws of association. But the point is, who is imagining? That is the question of Kant. So Kant would say that this is not possible. All instances of consciousness perception should be what? Unified. It should be like synthesis. That is why he says unity of self-consciousness. इसी लाइन पे शंकर सुनते हैं कि इन्होंने रिजेक्ट कर दिया. And after Jaina will come to Buddhism, again अनात्मवाद, नैरात्म्यवाद. तो शंकर फिर से सुनेंगे कि आपने भी आत्मा रिजेक्ट कर दिया. It is likely he may enter a hall where many people are there, including Charwaka, including Buddhists, and he may ask the question. So who all maintain the fact there is no Atma? One who rejects Atma is the Atma. तो किसने कहा आत्मा नहीं है? जिसने कहा वही है आत्मा. But you understand that Charwaka is not rejecting the sense of I, and that sense of I, according to them, is explained with reference to body. There is no conscious spiritual being who may survive bodily death, who is disembodied. So their point is, how will you know that there is Atma? Have you perceived anything like Atma independent of a body? So there is no existence of such disembodied self. But again, critique would say, if you have not perceived their existence, you have to also establish conclusively non-existence. So there is again a fallacy. If there is some statement, you could not prove it true or truthful. It does not imply it can be taken as a false. So similarly, if something cannot be proven false, you cannot say it has become true or truthful. In some cases also, some people could be accused of some crime. Let's say that X is the killer, murderer, is the statement. Accused, after due interrogation, under, say, the observation of judges, could not be conclusively proven guilty. इसका ये मतलब नहीं है कि X is not the killer. सिर्फ इतना साबित हुआ, X is the killer could not be established conclusively. So you cannot say X is the killer conclusively. But does that imply X is innocent? वो अलग से साबित करना होगा. There are few cases. आरुषि के पेरेंट्स का भी मामला ऐसा ही है. That all the court proceedings suggest that they could not be proven guilty beyond doubt. But that is not eking to say that they are innocent. And who knows, they could be innocent. But I'm just giving an example. So similarly, if you could not prove empirically their existence, तो आप कैसे बोल सकते हैं non-existence? वो भी अलग से साबित कीजिए. So that is not done. Some critics would say, if air, water, fire, earth are the source of consciousness, then why only human beings? Why not other beings? A table में भी, chair में भी, plant में भी क्यों नहीं है? Animal में भी consciousness is more like they can have some experience, perception, but not a self-consciousness. So why human beings have self-consciousness? So इनका answer वही है, unique proportion. In other beings, the proportion is other than what is in the case of human being. So this is how they try to answer the questions. तो इन बातों को अब लिखेंगे and then we'll revisit quickly ethics, which we have already discussed, and we will try to understand why Charwaka as a tradition, as a system, could not flourish and could not last as long or continue as many other traditions have been flourishing or evolving, progressing. So there is a kind of downfall of the school or traditions. या unofficially कहें तो हम लोग भी अभी Charwaka की ही जिंदगी जी रहे हैं. Credit card से we borrow and जहां तक हो सके उसको delay करके we maximize our pleasure. तो unofficially हम लोग Charwaka ही हैं. तो अब लिखते हैं metaphysics and then we'll go to the other part. लिखें metaphysics. The Charwaka propound materialism. They accept pratyaksh as the only praman. And, accordingly, they accept the reality of perceivable entities alone. Accordingly, they accept the reality of perceivable entities alone. Hence, they accept the reality of 4 material elements. Shubham is asking if we can use Devanagari. Okay, जैसे मान लीजिए आपने बीच में ऐसे लिख दिया व्याप्ति. You can do that, but if you have written English as your medium, it is likely that in some cases, though it is not that, it is almost rare now in our country, almost every professor can read Devanagari, जो philosophy के हैं, लेकिन तब भी there may be few who may not be able to read Devanagari script. तो अगर आपने English medium दिया है, तो कोशिश यही कीजिए कि Roman script में ही लिखें, जहां भी लिख रहे हैं. So they accept the reality of 4 material elements: colon, air, water, fire, earth. 1, 2, 3, 4 करके लिख लीजिए. They reject Akash, ether, since it is not perceived but inferred. The material elements are not in the atomic forms but in the gross forms. they reject the reality of God as well. Thus, there is no creator God. The world is created through the combination of the four material elements. The material elements are eternal, but their combinations undergo production and destruction. The material elements are eternal, but their THEIR combinations undergo production and destruction. The Charwaka reject the reality of Atma, capital B लिख सकते हैं. They reject the reality of Atma as spiritual substance, which is eternal, immutable, and immortal. Which is eternal, immutable, and immortal. But they do not reject the reality of consciousness. For them, the physical body, the physical body itself is the locus of consciousness. Physical body itself is the locus of the consciousness. Thus, they propound Dehatmavad. They maintain that the material elements are unconscious, but due to their unique combination, they give rise to consciousness. Consciousness is an epiphenomenon. Consciousness is an epiphenomenon. It is created as a byproduct. Kant का आपको याद है क्या terminology थी where he counters discussions pertaining to mind as a substance? Kant कुछ भी मत बोलिए, सोच. Kant के टेक्स्ट का स्ट्रक्चर याद है? Transcendental aesthetic, उसके बाद transcendental analytics, and then dialectics. तो dialectic में he is rejecting all discussions pertaining to mind as a substance or self as a substance, all positions about metaphysical character of reality, like whether there is a creator, whether world was created in time, and then God, because कुछ नाम उन्होंने रखा था. So what kind of fallacies result when we start to speculate about self as a substance? ज़्यादा भी नहीं हुआ, लेकिन लग रहा है पिछले जन्म का यही चार्ट बनाना, paralogism. And there he says that it is wrong in the part of philosophers to transgress the limit of knowledge. Human knowledge is confined to phenomena. But what we do, we are tempted to go to noumena. So Descartes claims, I think, therefore I am, and I can doubt this is my body. So mind-body interactionism, occasionalism, psychophysical parallelism of Spinoza, pre-established the harmony of Leibniz. And then he also talks about some thinkers whose handout में उस paragraph में आपके इसमें लिखा है, who may explain something like epiphenomenon, जैसे चारवाक है. तो वो नाम याद है आपको? जैसे स्टीम इंजन, वो सीटी ऐसे बजाती है जैसे लगता है उसमें कोई लाइफ आ गया हो. कुकर हर कुछ देर में एक पैटर्न में सीटी बजाना शुरू करती है जैसे उसमें कोई घोस्ट आ गया हो. तो क्या नाम है वहां पे? कांट ने एक नाम लिया, हक्सले. So this is how you see almost every view which is in Indian tradition. In fact, in many cases, very ancient traditions have said, and that is there in Western traditions also. तो consciousness क्या है? Epiphenomenon, byproduct, और उधर कांट ने उनको रिजेक्ट किया. ठीक है, आगे लिखें. They present the analogy of betel leaf, पान का पत्ता. They present the analogy of betel leaf, comma, areca nut, and lime to explain the creation of consciousness from unconscious material elements. और ये रिपीट कीजिए. आगे लिखें. None of the ingredients in betel leaf have redness none of the ingredients in the betel leaf have redness, but when they are chewed together or eaten together, when they are chewed or eaten together, red color is produced as a byproduct. Similarly, intoxicating quality appears when some ingredients are mixed together. Intoxicating quality appears when some ingredients are mixed together. The Charwaka claim that consciousness is also a byproduct. All the four material elements are unconscious, but when they are combined in a particular proportion, they give rise to consciousness as a byproduct. The Charwaka come close to the view of behaviorists, who maintain that different organs of the body have different functions. Similarly, the brain throws out consciousness. For the Charwaka, consciousness is the quality of a body, and it perishes, withers away. It perishes, withers away. It perishes with the disintegration of a body. There is no Atma, as the disembodied spiritual substance. There is no Atma as the disembodied spiritual substance which exists prior to birth and survives the bodily death. Thus, Atma is nothing but the conscious body. Parenthesis में देहात्मवाद. The refined Charwaka made a distinction between the sense organs, the vital principle, या ऐसे भी लिख सकते हैं, एलान vital. The vital principle, parenthesis में चाहे तो लिख सकते हैं, प्राण जैसे बोलते हैं क्योंकि प्राण निकल गए. So they make a distinction between sense organs, the vital principle, pran, the mind, and the physical body. They make a distinction between the sense organs, the vital principle or element vital, the mind, and the physical body. However, everything is a product of material elements. Everything is a product of material elements. अब लिखें critical evaluation. हाँ प्राण एक तरह से कुछ और ऐसे ट्रेडिशंस हैं who may think about pran as that essence, you say energy which can animate the body. In many other cases, Atma is the source of everything. So there, Atma may leave the body. So that time, Pran is like a Chaitana. But there is a concept called anima, where something comes. Basically, Aristotle maybe, there is no Atma which is disembodied. There is no immortal soul. the day body integrates, इस वर्ल्ड में मैटर एंड फॉर्म नेवर get separated from each other. So the day when we die, that vital principle or form also leaves this body. So there is something like conservation, or again there is a spark which may remain in Aristotle. So जैसे art, cartoon life में आ जाता है, so क्या बोलते हैं animation. In many cases it is believed that there could be something more than body, and that is like that एलन वाइटल, जो वाइटलिटी देता है उसको, और वो सबसे सेंट्रल है, उसकी वजह से बाकी और चीजें हो सकती हैं. तो बहुत सारे कॉन्सेप्ट हैं कि कैसे ए बॉडी एंड ए बॉडी एज इन लिविंग बॉडी एंड ए कॉर्प्स में बी डिफरेंट. नहीं, और आगे नहीं पढ़ेंगे. एक तरीका है उनके उसके बताने का कि शरीर में बहुत सारी चीजें, ब्रेन है, इंद्रिय है, बॉडी है, एंड देन प्राण है, एनर्जी है, और यहाँ पे उसी को एक तरह से समझिए दैट वाइटल प्रिंसिपल है विच इज द सोर्स ऑफ ऑल कॉन्शियस एक्टिविटीज. ठीक है. हाँ, तो आप लिखें क्रिटिकल इवैल्यूएशन, पॉइंट्स में लिख लें. शंकर argues that the one who negates the Atma, comma, is the Atma. The one, the person who negates the Atma is the Atma. अगली पॉइंट लिखें. Some critics observe if matter is the source of consciousness, if matter is the source of consciousness, then why only human body is conscious? Question mark. Why humans have self-consciousness? What makes them rational? Question mark. The Charwaka insist that human body is created through a unique combination of the material elements. Hence, the human body has unique distinctions. Human body has some distinctions, या unique distinctions. अगली बात लिखें. Some critics argue that consciousness is superior to the physical body. Consciousness can use the body as its instrument, its ITS without apostrophe, as its instrument. Hence, consciousness should remain independent of body. अगली बात लिखें. Some critics argue that the existence of disembodied self is not established, but the non-existence of the self is not established either. Hence, it is fallacious to conclude that there is no Atma, since its existence is not established after the death of the body. अगली बात लिखें. Some critics claim that matter cannot be the cause of consciousness. Conscious states are different from physical states. Physical states can be perceived, but the inner states of consciousness remain too private, TOO, remain too private to be perceived. So these are some of the critical points. तो फिर से हेडिंग बना लीजिए, एथिक्स, और लिख लीजिए रेफर टू दी हैंडआउट. So you already know ethics, and we have understood how eventually refined Charwaka bring back the third Purusharth, and they eventually retrieve 3 Purusharth of the 4. So 3 Varga come in their tradition. तो अब important question ये है that why Charwaka could not last as long as all other traditions could. तो इनका downfall क्यों हुआ है? Different thinkers, scholars have suggested different justification. So some may argue that probably because they reject the authority of scriptures. वेद को reject किया तो इसीलिए चल नहीं पाया जाता. But they counter Jaina and Buddhism are still flourishing. So how can you then say that just because they reject the authority of the scriptures, that is why they could not last so long? तो ये justification काम नहीं किया. Then some of them would say probably because they reject the existence of God. Again, there is no God in Buddhism. There is no God in Jainism. Not only that, you remember I told you, there is no personal God in Sankhya. There is no personal God in Mimamsa. And if you understand Shankar strictly, then the God, personal God, is only phenomenal. Phenomenal as in sometime we also construct a few things which can help us remain more disciplined. But when you know the truth, you know aham brahma asmi. The personal God is always other than us. तो उस हिसाब से देखें तो जो थीस्टिक पोजीशन है वो शंकर पे लागू नहीं होगी एंड इट विल बिकम लाइक स्पिनोजाज इम्पर्सनल कॉन्सेप्शन ऑफ गॉड. तो वहां भी गॉड नहीं है. तो बहुत सारे और हिंदू ट्रेडिशंस में भी गॉड नहीं है. तो इसके लिए भी आप चारवाक को नहीं बोल सकते हैं फेल होने का वजह. Most of them agree that the most important reason could be to reject the importance of value in life. So overall, they believe that they, as in critics, believe that they overemphasize on bodily fulfillment, sensual gratification. But humans are beyond body. We do need some of the basic pleasures of the senses. But the day we get all those basic prerequisites of our body, we go beyond them. That is, we have this within in our nature to seek progressive values beyond a point. So जब तक शारीरिक सुख नहीं है, we need them. But they cannot keep us contented beyond a point. And then we evolve to the progression of mind. जैसे कल I had recalled J.S. Mill's statement. It is better to be a Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. ठीक है, तो अब हम लोग ये downfall वाला लिखेंगे and then we'll come to the questions. तो लिखिए downfall. Scholars offer, heading analysis downfall. Scholars offer different explanations for the downfall of the Charwaka. Number 1. Some scholars talk about the rejection of Ved and the criticism of the priests. Rejection of the Ved and the criticism of the priests. But this cannot be the sole, principal PAL wala mukhya. But this cannot be the sole cause, since the Jain and the Buddhists have done the same. Number 2. Some scholars talk about the rejection of God. But again, the Jain, the Buddhists, the Sankhya, and the Mimamsa reject the reality of a personal God. अगली बात लिखें. Some scholars talk about the refutation of the soul. But this again cannot be the reason, since Buddhists also propound Anatmavad. They also propound no soul theory, Anatmavad. अगला पॉइंट लिखें. Most of these scholars argue that the rejection of profound values could be the principal reason. Human life goes beyond mere animal existence. Life is essentially a life of meaning, substance, and contentment. As a human, one seeks self-realization or self-actualization. As a human, one seeks self-realization, a life of self-realization, a life of pure bliss. Bliss is beyond sensual pleasure. It is unconditional, eternal, and intrinsically valuable. The crude Charwaka could not understand the progressive nature of humans as mill estates. As mill estates, a human, inherently carries a sense of dignity. A human inherently carries a sense of dignity. One knows that it is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It is better to be a human being dissatisfied than a pig satisfied. It is better to be a Socrates dissatisfied than a fool satisfied. However, the refined Charwaka, under the guidance of Vatsyayan, accept the importance of dharma in life and thereby uphold a life of त्रिवर्ग या चाहे तो हाइफन दे सकते हैं. Okay, so with this we have concluded our discussion on Charwaka. So now come to the questions. Charwaka जनरली क्वेश्चन होता जरूर है. Seems there's no question in this exam. Okay. आपको जो मैंने दिया उसमें 21 है या 22 है? 21 सही. Okay. पिछले कुछ सालों से नहीं आया है तो चारवाक पे क्वेश्चन क्यों है? Generally every year they ask, but you do see now, even if there's no direct question, you can always write some comparison. कुछ criticism with regard to that Anuman we can learn from Buddhist schools also. I will give you very extensive coverage of Buddhism and certain thinkers like Vijnanavadins as Dinag and Dharmakirti. The way they explain Pratyaksh, they say Pratyaksh exclusively is not meaningful. The moment it becomes conceptual, it starts to give a meaning to you. जैसे आपने लिखा है कांट के थ्रू परसेप्ट्स विदाउट कॉन्सेप्ट्स आर ब्लाइंड. तो अगर फिर से उसमें आप एक दो नाम भी जोड़ेंगे कि एज विज्ञानवादी, स्वतंत्र विज्ञानवादी, दिनाग में आर्ग्यू there can be no meaningful perception without conception. तो perception starts to give meaning only when there is a conception. तो थोड़ा सा टेक्निकल होगा, बाद में देखेंगे उसको. Okay, so 2021 से शुरू करते हैं. Comment on the bearing of Charwaka epistemology on the rejection of transcendental entities by them. तो क्या समझ में आया क्वेश्चन? So अगर और सिंप्लीफाई कर दें तो इट इज लाइक व्हाट इज द रोल ऑफ Charwaka's epistemology as far as the rejection of transcendental entities are concerned. Okay, so you have already written this point that they accept Pratyaksh as the only Praman. Hence, any such entities whose existence is not established on the basis of perception Pratyaksh would not remain acceptable, would not remain real to the Charwaka. कौन-कौन से transcendental entities हैं that they reject? आकाश. ठीक है, ये तीन चीजें आपको याद रखनी है. Now when you go further, you will see that almost every other tradition have accepted the reality of Atma. Buddhism का भी अपना unique है, but it does not mean they reject Atma. They may reject Atma as a eternal, immutable substance, and through their own theory of dependent origination, Pratit Samutpad, they will explain also Atma or continuity. हाँ,
मोक्ष is also transcendental.
मोक्ष इज ए ट्रांसेंडेंटल स्टेट ऑफ एग्जिस्टेंस। तो ट्रांसेंडेंटल का क्या मतलब होता है? जनरली वॉट एवर गोज बियॉन्ड समथिंग, उसको ट्रांस बोल सकते हैं। जैसे ट्रांसजेंडर, जो इस कैटेगरी में ना हो, उस कैटेगरी में ना हो, जो दोनों के बियॉन्ड जाए। तो ऐसे ही आर एग्जिस्टेंस दैट कैन गो बियॉन्ड दिस रेल्म, एम्पिरिकल रेल्म, तो दैट इज लाइक ट्रांसेंडेंटल रेल्म। तो मोक्ष इज ए रेल्म according to other traditions where you remain forever, but that existence is not embodied, it is disembodied। ठीक है, तो इस हिसाब से मोक्ष can be like a transcendental state of existence। 2020 critically evaluate Charwaka's rejection of Akash as one of the elements of reality and examine their criticism of transmigration of soul। तो चाहे 2021 हो, 2020 हो, what will be the critical point? How do they reject?
They cannot be verified as in experience.
And so then what established their existence? Proponents rely on something. On what they rely? उनके लिए proponents as in proponent of transcendental entities, अनुमान। तो they reject first अनुमान as a प्रमाण, and to reject अनुमान as a प्रमाण, what they reject? व्याप्ति। ठीक है, तो critical evaluation में क्या होगा चारवाक का? That their rejection of व्याप्ति, their rejection of अनुमान is not justified because they rely on anuman to refute anuman. So hence, we cannot completely accept their refutation of transcendental entities as right or tenable. So their rejection has some defects. Okay. तो एक तो पोजीशन है कि चारवाक का क्या व्यू है, और दूसरा चारवाक के व्यू की कमियां। ओके, 2020 तो अभी आप जैना नहीं जानते हैं, तो सस्पेंड दिस। 2019 आर दी चारवाकास कंसिस्टेंट व्हेन दे होल्ड दैट इन्फरेंस इज नॉट ए सोर्स ऑफ नॉलेज? So, yes, so the very rejection of inference is on the basis of inference. So that is how their position becomes inconsistent। 2019 refine, हाँ वो बात लिखिए, वो हमेशा आप लिखिए। 2019 what is wrong according to the Charwakas with the following argument? All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore Socrates is immortal। Justify your answer with arguments। तो बताएं what is wrong according to the Charwak with the following argument।
प्रमाण is based on प्रत्यक्ष only।
पहले इसे कॉन्टेक्स्ट में बनाइए, लिखिए इस बार दो तीन लाइन लिखिए इंट्रोडक्शन, जिससे पता चले कि आपने समझा क्वेश्चन। हाँ ठीक है शुभम, लेकिन इसको थोड़ा सा और टेक्निकल तरीके से भी बताइए। तो दीजिए रुझान।
According to Charwakas, the given Vyapti is a part of Anuman. It is completely rejected by them. They believe that the only source of Praman is Pratyaksh। According to Charwak, Vyapti do not give reliable knowledge, and we cannot know what is happening in events happening in distant।
Okay, ठीक है। और ठीक है काव्य। So it says what? हाँ।
For the following statement, Charwakas neglect the final sentence that ruled as they do not consider inference as the source of knowledge। The syllogism hereby is not just for them, as accepting Vyapti is simple offense।
ठीक है, तो आपने भी लिखा है काव्य ने दी फॉलोइंग प्रोपोजिशन, समझ लो आप इसके लिए बोल रही हैं, लेकिन ऐसे भी कर सकते हैं क्वेश्चन सेइंग व्हाट इज रॉन्ग अकॉर्डिंग टू द चारवाकास विद द फॉलोइंग आर्गुमेंट। ओके, इसके बाद आर्गुमेंट देके पूछ रहा है जस्टिफाई योर आंसर विद आर्गुमेंट्स। आप बोल सकते हैं द गिवन आर्गुमेंट इज इनवैलिड अकॉर्डिंग टू द चारवाक बिकॉज इट इज ए फॉर्म ऑफ अनुमान। ठीक, दे क्लेम दैट इट इज रॉन्ग या अनुमान इज रॉन्ग सिंस, शब्द वही ले रहे हैं क्वेश्चन में है रॉन्ग, इसीलिए इट इज रॉन्ग और इट इज इनवैलिड सिंस इट रिलाइज ऑन व्याप्ति रिलेशन बिटवीन, तब आपको और बेहतर तरीके से मालूम होगा, लेकिन आप यहां से भी ले लीजिए, बिकॉज इट रिलाइज ऑन व्याप्ति रिलेशन बिटवीन मेन एंड द मॉर्टल और मॉर्टैलिटी। द चारवाक आर्ग्यू दैट Vyapti relation as a universal necessary relation or a relation which is of invariable concomitance is not established conclusively। Vyapti jnana cannot be established sufficiently through induction or deduction, since induction can at best make it highly probable and deduction always remains circular, या deduction presupposes rather than prove। So there can be no conclusive proof for the Vyapti relation। Charwaka accept Pratyaksh as the only Praman, which is the knowledge of a particular case, a particular instance in present time। It is not possible to go to distant past nor to move from observed cases to unobserved cases। तो जो बातें हैं वो सब लिख के उसके बाद वो भी आप बोल सकते हैं। However, refined Charwak may not completely reject it because mortality can be cross-examined through empirical observation, and they primarily, that is educated, refined या सुशिक्षित Charwak reject all such instances of Hanuman whereby the reality of transcendental entities could be established। ठीक है, 2018 is Charwak rejection of inference acceptable to the other systems of Indian philosophy? If not, why? Do you think the views of other systems to be justified? Give reasons for your answer। तो क्या है अनुमान? अनुमान is basically inference, argument. It is like accepting certain pivotal foundational rules whereby we can think coherently, we can interact with each other meaningfully. So to refute anuman is to give up all thinking, all reasoning, all interpersonal exchanges. So hence the arguments of the other systems are justified. लेकिन बाद में आप थोड़ा सा उसमें भी चारवाक को भी ले लें कि पूरी तरह से ये भी रिजेक्ट नहीं करते हैं, ठीक है? एक और व्यू है लाइक वी विल सी दिस वर्ल्ड इज आल्सो अपीयरेंस फॉर मेनी सिस्टम्स इंक्लूडिंग माध्यमिक शून्यवाद एंड शंकर अद्वैत वेदांत. तो व्हेन यू गो देयर नन ऑफ द प्रमाण विल रिमेन रेलेवेंट देयर. तो वो सब को रिजेक्ट करते हैं, नॉट ओनली अनुमान. लेकिन चारवाक दिस इज द वर्ल्ड एंड येट दे रिजेक्ट अनुमान. तो देयर इज अ डिफरेंस. ओके 2017 द सोल इज नथिंग बट कॉन्शियस बॉडी. व्हाट आर द रीजंस फॉर चारवाक इन होल्डिंग दिस व्यू? इसको आप एक टेक्निकल वर्ड में आंसर राइटिंग में यू ट्राई टू कम आउट विद समथिंग वेयर बाय यू सीम प्रॉमिसिंग. तो इसके लिए टेक्निकल क्या नाम है? द सोल इज नथिंग बट कॉन्शियस बॉडी. देहात्मवाद. तो क्वेश्चन कह रही है व्हाट आर द रीजंस फॉर चारवाक इन होल्डिंग दिस व्यू. तो आप बोल सकते हैं द चारवाक अपहोल्ड और प्रोपाउंड देहात्मवाद. चाहे तो वहां पे फिर से कॉमा डाल के लिख दें द सोल इज नथिंग बट कॉन्शियस बॉडी. अब वही बातें हैं कैसे? दे एक्सेप्ट प्रत्यक्ष एज द ओनली प्रमाण. अकॉर्डिंगली ओनली दोज एंटिटीज आर रियल व्हिच आर परसीवेबल. Thus, they accept the reality of air, water, fire, earth, and refute the reality of transcendental entities, namely Akash, Atma, and God. But they don't reject the reality of consciousness. They explain genesis of consciousness or creation of consciousness as a byproduct, AP phenomenon, with the analogies of betel leaf and other intoxicating ingredients, other ingredients who create intoxicating qualities. आपको बाकी चीजें मालूम है इससे रिलेटेड क्रिटिसिज्म. शंकर सेज वन हु निगेट्स आत्मा इज द आत्मा. बाद में बुद्धिज्म भी मालूम होगा, एक लाइन आप वहां उनका भी मानेंगे दैट बुद्ध इज आल्सो प्रोपाउंड अनात्मवाद. बट हाउ अनात्मवाद इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम देहात्मवाद, एक लाइन आप वहां लिख सकते हैं. ओके इसमें भी ऐसा लिख सकते हैं, डिपेंड्स व्हाट यू आर राइटिंग इन सेक्शन ए, दैट इज सिमिलर क्रिटिसिज्म इज मेड बाय कांट अगेंस्ट ह्यूम. जिस तरह का शंकर वुड मेक अगेंस्ट चारवाक अगेंस्ट बुद्धिज्म, सिमिलरली कांट हैज आल्सो मेड अगेंस्ट डेविड ह्यूम. 2016 व्हाट वुड बी चारवाका's व्यू ऑन व्याप्ति? Can this view be acceptable to the Nyayikas? Give reasons for your answer. So when we come to Nyaya, we will understand how would they explain Vyakti. हाँ criticism तो लिखना ही है, ठीक है शुभम, हर जगह criticism लिखना है. तो मैं जो बातें नहीं बोल रहा हूँ उसका मतलब है I take it for now, given that you all know that all these points will always come. ठीक है. चलिए 2015 explain the arguments of Charwaka to reject transcendental entities. तो क्या है इनके आर्ग्यूमेंट्स? प्राइमरली इट इज द रेफ्यूटेशन ऑफ अनुमान बाय रेफ्यूटिंग द व्याप्ति ज्ञान, व्याप्ति रिलेशन. एंड देन यू कैन टॉक अबाउट द वीकनेस व्हिच इज टू रेफ्यूट अनुमान इज टू रिलाई अपॉन अनुमान. लेकिन ओवरऑल इनका जो रिजेक्शन है दैट मे हैव सम वैल्यू. एंड इन मेनी केसेस जब बाद में दूसरे ट्रेडिशंस को जानेंगे तो यू मे से दैट हाउ जैनास रेफ्यूटेशन ऑफ पर्सनल गॉड और रियलिटी ऑफ गॉड इज आल्सो सपोर्टिंग द क्लेम ऑफ चारवाक. लेकिन आर्ग्यूमेंट ओवरऑल अलग है. ओके दे रिजेक्ट आत्मा बट बुद्धिस्ट आल्सो रिजेक्ट आत्मा. कहा थे 2015. Okay 2014 limits of knowledge and world are determined by my sense perception. Discuss this claim of Charwaks. Limits of knowledge and world are determined by my sense perception. एक तरह से चारवाक कौन है? एम्पिरिसिस्ट हैं. ओके इंडियन फिलोसफी के ये एम्पिरिसिस्ट हैं. तो क्या इसका मतलब है? जैसे आपके हैंडआउट में भी कुछ लाइंस ऐसे हैं. सो इन सम वे द स्टेटमेंट सजेस्ट दैट प्रत्यक्ष इज द ओनली प्रमाण एंड मटेरियल एलिमेंट्स आर द ओनली रियलिटीज. So they propound materialism, they propound empiricism in a way. They thereby other corollaries are what? Dehatmavad. There's no transcendental realm like Akash. There's no God. And then you talk about the weak point. The perception without the conception is blind, is meaningless. Refutation of Anuman is a form of Anuman. It is self-contradictory. तुमसे बातों को लिखिए. 2012. Why do Charwakas not believe in the validity of inference? What logic do they give for their belief? Logic खुद दे रहे हैं. तो logic ही है अनुमान. Okay, then we'll come to Nyaya. Nyaya is like ancient logical tradition. Okay, so this is how you understand. जो logic है वो भी Indian tradition में आएंगे. तो logicians जो हैं वो हैं ancient जो हैं वो हैं यही. बाद में we get Dinag Dharmakirti as a Buddhist logicians. And then again we have some Nyaya scholars. They are like modern logicians. Okay. 2012 second one. On what basis does Charwaka reject the cause-effect relationship? Give reasons for your answer. The cause-effect relationship is a form of Vyakti relation, and hence you understand their position. तो बहुत हद तक दोनों क्वेश्चन मिलता जुलता है. 2011. Why do Charwakas reject the concept of Akash? तो क्या लिखेंगे ओपनिंग रिमार्क?
The Charwakas reject the concept of Akash as they propound Dehatmavad.
आकाश में अभी देह को मत लाइए. हाँ यानी एकदम सिंपल चाहिए कि the reality of Akash is established on the basis of inference. The Charwaka claim inference is not a genuine प्रमाण. उसके बाद आप बाकी चीजों को धीरे धीरे ले आइए. 2007 चार्वका's views on the nature of soul. तो फिर से आप क्या बोल सकते हैं? They reject the reality of a soul as a spiritual substance. However, they propound देहात्मवाद. क्वेश्चन में जो लाइन है वो भी लिख सकते हैं. क्वेश्चन में पहली लाइन था देहात्मवाद के लिए, the soul is nothing but conscious body. यहां से भी आंसर शुरू कर सकते हैं. What is the views, Charwaka's views on the nature of soul? तो for the Charwaka, the soul is nothing but conscious body. देहात्मवाद. और उसके बाद प्रत्यक्ष पे जाइए और बाकी चीजों को एक्सप्लेन कीजिए. 2006 discuss the theory of knowledge according to Charwaka philosophy. तो क्या है theory of knowledge? प्रत्यक्ष is the only प्रमाण, अनुमान का rejection, शब्द प्रमाण का rejection. And when you talk about all of this, don't forget that how by accepting प्रत्यक्ष, other positions are the corollaries. तो materialism is a corollary, hedonism is a corollary, and likewise देहात्मवाद is a corollary. Rejection of आकाश, rejection of God, all of them are corollaries. 2004 देहात्मवाद. 3 Charwaka's refutation of अनुमान is itself a process of अनुमान. तो क्वेश्चन आपको आंसर भी बता रहे हैं, तो कभी इसी लाइन को आप इंट्रोडक्शन बना सकते हैं. 2002 state and evaluate critically Charwaka view that perception is the only source of knowledge. So you understand the implications, materialism, hedonism included. The Charwaka theory of consciousness, तो जो इनका व्यू है एपी फेनोमेना, वो सब लिखिए. हाउ क्रिटिसिज्म्स कैन बी देयर, वो सब इसमें आ जाएगा. एथिक्स ऑफ चारवाक स्कूल, तो ये एथिक्स क्या है? हेडोनिस्टिक है. एंड देन इवेंचुअली इट कम्स टू त्रिवर्गा. उन सब बातों को लिखिए. हाँ, तो यू कैन ऑल्सो एम्फेसाइज कीपिंग इन माइंड द कॉन्टेक्स्ट. अभी जैसे कॉन्टेक्स्ट बन रहा है, सो they undermine the higher values of human life, and in fact that becomes one of the principal reason for the downfall of the system as well. Okay, तो जितना हो आंसर लिखते समय आप ज्यादा inclusive sense में चीजों को लेके आइए. The soul is nothing but the conscious body. Again you see that the same line has been repeated. So we have about 13 minutes, so let's know the next tradition, which is the Jain. Okay, so we are first covering the heterodox tradition. चारवाक हो चुका, इसके बाद अभी जैन, फिर we'll go to the Buddhism. You all have already, अब वो सब बातें आप लिख सकते हैं. शुभम, मालूम है कि चेतना एज कॉन्शियसनेस इन दिस केस इज द क्वालिटी ऑफ बॉडी, नॉट द क्वालिटी ऑफ सोल एज ए सब्सटेंस. तो उन सब बातों को आप एम्फेसाइज कर सकते हैं. चेतना इज कॉन्शियसनेस, लेकिन आत्मा इज लाइक ए सोल सब्सटेंस हुज क्वालिटी इज चेतना. जैसे अभी आप पूछ ही रहे थे कि जैन वुड एक्सेप्ट द रियलिटी ऑफ सोल. जनरली वर्ड में चेंज according to the tradition. So what is the word for soul or atma in the case of Jaina? Jeev. तो definition वो ये देंगे कि चेतना लक्षणो जीव. चेतना, consciousness is the essential quality of जीव. तो उस context में चेतना हो गया consciousness. ठीक है? Okay, so you all know that the Jainism is a philosophical tradition, and it is a religion also which have been there since centuries. When we think about the Jaina as a tradition, as a philosophical school, we can refer to some of the important names who are there as Tirthankaras. And the most well-known is the 24th Tirthankar, who is Vardhaman Mahavir. He is the 24th, यानी 23 पहले हैं, and first one is Rishabhdev, and 23rd is Parshvanath. In some ways, Vardhaman has tried to develop Jainism as a complete tradition, and whatever were implicit in previous Tirthankara's teaching, he has brought it to complete progression, or it has culminated in the hands of Vardhaman Mahavir. The word Jaina itself is very inspirational or interesting to understand. The root word is Jin. Jin means victor, conqueror. And that is why we add the epithet. Vardhaman is who? Mahavir. ऐसे वैसे वीर नहीं हैं, महावीर हैं, वीरों के वीर. तो when we think about वीर, तो conventional sense में भी कोई तलवार वगैरह लेके, धनुष बाण लेके, वॉरियर वाली ड्रेस पहन के, घोड़े पे एकदम डरावनी आंखों से देखते हुए ऐसा इमेज बनता है. तो he is महावीर. तो when we think about him like that conqueror who would have conquered kingdoms and who may be carrying some weapons, some arms, some swords. लेकिन they are conqueror with a difference, and thus they use the arms love. अहिंसा, इनका जो sword है, arm ammunition है, वो है love, अहिंसा. And enemies are not external, enemies are within, and the enemies are क्रोध, लोभ, मान, maya. So क्रोध, लोभ, मान, maya are the four inherent enemies. They are intrinsic to us. You all know क्रोध has anger, लोभ could be greed, मान is a sense of pride, pride in a negative sense. इसीलिए क्या बोलते हैं? अभिमान, कि बहुत अभिमानी. तो कभी कभी इसका एक पॉजिटिव सेंस हो सकता है, where you may have a sense of self respect, but when we have a मान, तो this is like having arrogance as an egoistic, I me myself. अभी किसी फ्रेंड के मैंने उसमें देखा था कि जो सबसे प्रॉब्लमेटिक विटामिन है वो है विटामिन मी. तो ज्यादातर लोगों में विटामिन मी होता है कि मैं ना ये, मैं ना वो, आई ये यू पे आते ही नहीं, बस मैं अपना नाम भी बहुत लोग बार बार लेते हैं. तो जहां पे ये वो मान हो तो हाईली इगोइस्टिक. माया इज लाइक डिल्यूजन. We are deluded. We give value to things that they don't have. So this is how Krodh, Lobh, Man, Maya, a sense of anger, greed, arrogance, delusion is something that we have to come out of. And the path would be ahimsa in a way. So now over a period of time, it has evolved. And when it comes to Parshvanath, you understand that he has inspired many people, including the parents of Vardhaman. So Vardhaman is someone who is a ज्ञात पुत्र, as in इनका जो clan है वो ज्ञात है, कुंडग्राम से है. He is married, he has a daughter, but then at a young age of 30 years he goes for a life of renunciation, and then he takes this teaching to another level, and he has completed अहिंसा, अस्तेय, अपरिग्रह, ब्रह्मचर्य and सत्य. तो ये जो 5 वैल्यू सिस्टम है ये इनके कार्यकाल में पूरी तरह से डेवलप हुआ. So this is how वर्धमान महावीर is often regarded as the main exponent or propounder. We are using the word तीर्थंकर. तो what is a तीर्थंकर? लिटरल मीनिंग इज लाइक फेरीमैन, यानी बोट मैन. जैसे शब्द है मांझी, बहुत से हिंदी सिनेमा के गानों में आप सुनेंगे, ओ मांझी रे अपना किनारा. तो जो नाव लेके आए, नाविक, और आपको इस एंड से उस एंड लेके जाए. तो जनरली व्हाट हैपेंस, दीज आर लाइक अ मेटाफर. वी मे बी ऑन ए साइड ऑफ लाइफ and that is a state of pain, misery, suffering, but the guidelines of Tirthankar may come as a boat whereby we can complete our journey from a life of ignorance. We can come to a life of knowledge, a life where we are suffering in multiple ways. We can come out of that, and it is a life of self-actualization, self-realization. In some way, metaphorically, Tirthankars are like the saviors of the soul. बहुत सारे questions ethics में इस तरह के हैं. What are the qualities you think a civil servant should have? You can, these are such well-known thinkers, Tirthankaras, that you can talk about them. That they should be like the present Tirthankaras, like Mahavir, who should try to take infrastructure resources to the marginalized section so that they come out of a life of suffering, a life of oppression, and they attain a life of self-respect and dignity. They can have a right to self-determination. तो इन सब चीजों के साथ जब बोलेंगे तो you will sound very authentic and credible and promising. कम लिख के ज्यादा कहने की आपकी जो ability है वो develop हो जाएगा. And you can then also say that they should aspire to act like the जन सेवक, as the saviors of humanity. तो कम लिखिए और ज्यादा communicate कीजिए. Ordinarily we have the other quality, और उसमें हम लोग लिखते ज्यादा हैं, कहते कम हैं. तो this is how it can help you in multiple ways. तो जो writings हैं, the foundational teachings are often called angas, which are like the black and white compilation of the teachings of the Tirthankaras. So they are also rejecting Ved, Upanishad, the scriptures, and they are propounding a counter to Hindu tradition. Sometimes to be true to all the traditions, we should not say, कई बार लोग ऐसे बोलते हैं, but एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कहा जा सकता है डिफरेंट तरीके से, बट वन शुड नॉट क्लेम तो है तो हिंदुइज्म ही. दे आर, इट इज लाइक ट्राइंग टू पैट्रोनाइज देम. They have their own justification and independence by critiquing many things. Especially they are emphasizing on ahimsa. They are questioning caste-based practices. लेकिन हाँ, हर tradition Hinduism हो सकता है किस मामले में? Not that they have to be called Hinduism, because Hinduism suggests the truth is one, but it can be interpreted variously. So let all the views remain same essentially, but you can acknowledge their empirical uniqueness, significance as well. और यहाँ भी आप वो view देखेंगे. Their Anikantavad and Syadvad would claim that truth may have innumerable character, but when you know, you always know it from your respective standpoint, and we'll see the story of elephant. So Jaina will begin properly from tomorrow, and there are few things we will write, and most of the things are already in your handout. तो चाहे तो आप एक quick reading दे सकते हैं इन pages के, ठीक है? तो चलिए, so we'll meet tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. and continue with